So I've been noticing a lot these days that in our society right now, especially in Western society, that we have the tendency to criticize a lot. In fact, you scroll down YouTube in the comments section or on a newspaper site in the comments section, and you scroll down, there's a lot of criticism, and a lot of things that are being said are just plain nasty. They're just plain wrong, and sometimes that are just very, very hurtful and very damaging, to say the least. Sometimes you see comments about a certain person and what they've done, and maybe the work that they're doing. I'm not sure what it is. I think it's maybe a sign of our time to reveal how negative and broken a lot of people really are, even in response to good things or maybe different things. But when you look at these comments today, and it's not a representative of majority of our society, but I think when people begin to speak out that way and you see a lot of that sort of attitude, it reveals to me that I think there could be a little bit of a problem in our society right now where the culture is surrounded around criticism, surrounded around tearing down certain people or tearing down certain situations or things and criticizing circumstances or people. And what ends up happening is that a lot of these people see these comments, they read these comments, and unfortunately they get impacted by them severely. Now, here's the thing. We can choose to either keep pointing out everything that's wrong with our society, with our generation, with the older generation, with the newer generation, with our politicians, with our local leaders, or maybe our church leaders, our churches, our congregations, and maybe the way they're running or functioning. Maybe it's something to do with the Bible and all of that. But often we have very little to say for things to be built up and for positive and good outcomes to be made. I think the attitude that we need to be very weary of, and the mindset that maybe we might need to make a choice in choosing each and every day of our lives, and the way we live our life and the way we speak about people and respond to situations or to things that we see or experience, is not that culture of pointing out everything that's wrong with it. There's nothing wrong per se to criticize, but I believe there is a certain responsibility when you do criticize to contribute something good on the other end, to give a tool or give something of the sort to help build up that situation, or to build or contribute to a person's maybe endeavor or life in a way that maybe they can be inspired from, that they can receive some sort of fuel to keep going or to maybe rethink things. And I think the natural response for most people when they only hear criticism is that they feel very down on themselves. And in fact, the vitriol of today's culture of criticism, of tearing down others when they're wrong, or maybe they made an error, or maybe there's a problem, that it seeks to put more of a stumbling block in front of that person or that situation and tear it down and destroy it, rather than seeking to renew, revive, maybe revise, to build the best of that potential up. So we can choose to keep pointing out what is wrong, or we can figure out what's wrong and contribute and build up in a way that it can make things right. So it says in Romans chapter 14, verse 19, Paul states, "So then let us pursue what makes for peace and for mutual upbuilding." Now the Apostle Paul reminds us we can't be caught up in the culture of criticism. Every single time we get caught up in that sort of messy dialogue is when we start seeing the condition of condemnation, of judgment, of tearing down, of destroying, which is often the work of the enemy. But the work of God and the work of the Holy Spirit seeks to love, seeks to instill grace, to have compassion, to have mercy, and to build up the people of God rather than to tear them down. You know, if somebody tells you that you're no good 20 times, 30 times, 40 times, 50 times, and keeps saying that, and you see that, whether it's from people around you or whether it's maybe work that you're doing, you just keep hearing that you're not good at this, but you receive no tools or no advice to get you to the place that you want to be or get you to the place that you need to be, then often it begins to communicate a very different message to that person. When it's only the problems and only the things that are wrong that are constantly being pointed out to that individual, it communicates they're no good, you're no good, that their life is not valued, that their work is not valued, that their existence in many ways is not valued. Instead of instilling a heart of grace, it communicates hatred a lot of the time, and that's how people feel. It communicates judgment, it communicates condemnation, it communicates the very opposite thing that Jesus lived for and also died for, and the reason why he rose again. Now sometimes you need to take things down, maybe you need to scrap things, and maybe you need to start from scratch, maybe you need to just tear it down and so that you can build it back up. But without a vision, without a reason, without a tool, or without an encouragement or a lead or an inspiration, that's all it becomes. It becomes a pile of rubble, and people become piles of rubble when it's only criticism. But when we choose to build and build with grace, with love, with patience, with mercy, but also with a heart of just giving. You know, if we're saying, hey, what about this? Or what about that? What about this idea? Or hey, I noticed this about you. You can totally do this. And instilling love and encouragement into that person's life, how much further can somebody go when we begin to encourage? And that goes the same with our society. That goes the same with any generation. That goes the same with the people in our lives. That goes especially the same in our churches. Are we contributing not only to the church, but also to society by saying, okay, here are the things that are wrong, here are the things that are our problem, but here are some of the ideas that I might have, or here's what the word says, or here's what I feel the Lord is saying, and instilling that love and grace and investing your time, your energy, and your heart into building those people up. Maybe you can't do that for certain people who are way distant from you. Maybe they're too famous, but maybe you can find the good things and say a positive thing here and there. Maybe sometimes we need to outweigh the bad with the good. And that might not seem fair, because maybe some people in our lives have done so many terrible things, or maybe so many things that may have hurt us. But Jesus does the exact same thing for us. We didn't deserve his death on the cross. We certainly didn't deserve the amount of sacrifice that he had given for each and one of us. In fact, he knew that we would continue to sin. He knew that we would continue to do the wrong things. But instead of criticizing and tell us how sinful we are and tell us how wretched and terrible we are, instead he gives his life on the cross for us, and then he rises again from the dead. And then he gives us a commission. He says, go and make disciples of all nations. Who are we to do that? He sends us the Holy Spirit then, and he's saying, go, do this. And that's the thing about Christ. His grace totally outweighs the amount of sin that we have in our lives. His love for us totally outweighs the amount that we have for him. And so maybe the culture that we might want to begin to build in our hearts, in the people immediately around us, or maybe the society that we're currently attached to and involved with, that we become a positive influence, that we would become people who build up, who contribute, even when the negative things are outweighed. I believe that's what Jesus does for us. And in many ways, if we're going to practice what Jesus did for us, then maybe we have to begin there as well. Are we builders or are we destroyers? And that's a question that I have for you to think about this coming week. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. God bless you. See you. Bye.